Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of season 2 of the Jack Basong Show. Took a little hiatus with no news, no sports going on, but given that the Blackhawks are in the playoffs, there's MLB going on, there's other sports. Hopefully, the NFL starts in a couple months. Figured let's give it another go. Before we get started, I'd like to talk. The podcast is now on the Apple podcast app, so where you usually download most of your podcasts. If you're a fan, mean a lot if you subscribe, maybe give it a 5-star review. If you give it a 1-star review, make sure there's constructive criticism. Don't just say like this guy sucks, because then I don't know what to do with that. But anyway, like to bring in Cam Parker. He's used to play roller hockey with him at Thomas Jefferson Elementary School. I'll say when it comes to me in the NHL, I usually only watch when they get into the playoffs. And then every time, once the playoffs start, I get to learn a bunch of new people. Cam Parker is totally different than that. So I thought we'd talk about the Hawks playoff series, which starts in a few hours. We get a little insider info. We'll talk a little bit about the Edmonton Oilers series. Yeah, and that's pretty much all I got for you. So, Cam, how you doing? Can't hear you. Cam, I can't hear you. Damn it. See if you can figure this out before. All right, now I hear you.
Do you hear me now?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to restart.
Cool. Or we could just chop it up, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we can just chop it up. Cool. So I was saying, all right, Cam, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. But I do want to preface the episode by saying, I'm not a kind of full-fledged hockey fan as much as some of the more affluent people on Twitter or on social media. I'm not following Corsi very hard. I grew up near downtown Palatine, which is about 30 minutes northwest of the United Center. So I pretty much grew up there. So I do enjoy watching the Hawks. And I'm excited to share what I can for you and your fans here. Because the difference between me and the hockey hardos on Twitter is that I'm on the very first episode of season 2 of the Jack Basong Show, and they're not. So very happy. Thank you.
Yeah, if you can't see, we both got our I just changed, put on my Hawks shirt. I hope everyone else has their Hawks shirt ready to go for tonight, even though it's 9:30 start time, which the game ends at 12:30, which it is fun to just stay up until 1 in the morning. And then if they win, you got to celebrate till 2 in the morning. And then, you wake up for work, you're tired, but whatever, you're in a good mood because the Hawks won, right?
Yeah, I'm on board with you there.
Cool. All right. First, let's talk about let's highlight the Oilers series. So I've heard the Connor McDavid name. I never knew how good he actually was. I didn't really know how good anyone on the Oilers were. I just knew they were the 5 seed. So I'll give you. I know the Hawks were the 12 seed out of 15 or 16. 15, yeah, 15 in the conference. Were you kind of surprised at the performance they put together against the Oilers this last couple weeks?
Oh, I mean, just having hockey in general is kind of a surprise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's even weirder to see two teams that you watch pretty closely in the regular season go head to head without any fans in the stadium. But the book on the Oilers is essentially McDavid and Draisaitl. They're kind of a two-legged table, which doesn't stand all that often. They had a great season, but obviously with 4 months of dormancy, you kind of get whatever you get, right? And for the Hawks, a lot of things had to go right, and they did. Sorry if you can hear my dog. He just really wants to be on the show. And he's a big Hawks fan, so he's getting a little antsy. But the Hawks got a lot out of some guys that I didn't think they were going to get a lot from, right? Obviously, you have some downturns. Giving up 6 goals in a playoff game or a postseason qualifying game never feels good. But all the Hawks had to do is put together 3 wins, and they did. So that's what I got. I don't know if from your perspective, like as a somebody that wasn't following as closely, how did you feel sort of watching that, and then obviously seeing your team move on, your beloved team move on. But what did you kind of take away from what you saw?
Yeah. So I kind of like I was saying is I feel like every year we get to the playoffs, there's always someone new. When I say every year, I mean like this whole decade. I mean, because obviously we haven't been the last couple of years.
We're spoiled
But
for sure.
yeah, there's always someone who I'm like, wow, I've never even heard of this guy, and this guy's a stud. I feel like this year was totally Kirby Dach. Like Kirby Dach, I think he was leading the Hawks in ice time, or maybe he was second behind Keith for one game. He's playing center out of all forwards. I thought that guy looked like a stud. Another takeaway I mean, Kane, he missed a couple breakaways in the second game, or missed a breakaway, or missed a couple opportunities where McDavid was capitalizing. But you know what? I think the rest of the Hawks team outplayed the Oilers from what I know. The other thing I'd say is Crawford. I kind of want to bring this up. So Crawford in game 2, he had a couple instances where we were kind of like, hey, what is he doing? You know, we got the game to 1 goal in the third period in game 2. And I feel like I'm being overcritical because this is like the one game the Hawks lost. But, you know, he had like the really bad pass where they scored right away. Then right after that, another. Now, of course, all those goals, they gave up 6. One was one of the greatest shots I've ever seen by Connor McDavid. But overall, I think it kind of depends on just what Corey Crawford we're going to get, because no matter who's around you, if you get a really hot goaltender, then you got a scorer like Patrick Kane on the team. You know, you like to think you could always, you know, make a run.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the average age of this Blackhawks playoff team is what, like 24, 25, somewhere in that range. But you got to look at it like a bar fight, right? I mean, having 2, 88, 19, 50 as your front men kind of makes any fight seem fair at any bar that you're walking into. So Vegas is interesting because obviously they're built from like mid to almost top tier level guys from the rest of the league. But I'll take that kind of core 4 against anybody else's best 4, no matter what time, no matter what place. But speaking to Crawford, I don't know if you want me to. Do you want to go? Should we go Doc, Crawford, and then move along? But we could start with Doc if you want.
Yeah, let's start with Doc.
Cool. Obviously with him, it's like I think he just turned 19 in January. So like the way that he's playing on the stage that he's playing is obviously very impressive. But if you want to beat Vegas, what you're going to need from him, like you just said about Kane, is obviously he's whiffing on a lot of opportunities. You know, he's not getting his nose in there as often as you'd probably like him to. Just typical 19-year-old stuff, right? Somebody tells you to do something and you're hesitant about it. That happens kind of subconsciously when you're on the ice too. So obviously you need to see him finish a little bit more. Which is not the typical problem for 19-year-olds. Typically, they're finishing all the time. But I would like to see him kind of take the next step at this stage. And I think this could only help him, right, is beating the Oilers and playing against somebody like Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. He was so crazy to watch. You always knew when he had the puck, right? Same thing with McDavid. You're not going to get that sort of – you'll get explosiveness, but you're not going to get that like, whoa, who the fuck is that kind of explosiveness from Vegas. You will, but in different doses. So I'd like to see him take the next step and finish some of those chances, especially early, kind of like Kubalik was able to in game 1, but then obviously you don't see him again until game 4 in the Oilers series. Mm-hmm. But, speaking to Crawford too, kind of on the same wavelength, you were playing against Robin Leonard, right? If you're Vegas, you got to send Leonard out there. I mean, it's almost like fate. It's kind of like destiny, right? Stan decides to ship Leonard off to Vegas right before the trade deadline. He's arguably still a top 3 talent in the league. He was kind of splitting time with Crow, who, every time you look in his eyes, it's like you're looking like into the back of his head because he's had so many concussions. And then obviously he gets coronavirus too. So this crazy trajectory that we're on with this battle of these goalies just feels so good and so interesting to watch. I just don't know what edge of the sword I want to be on, right? So I'm confident in Crow, obviously. We've grown up with the guy, fucking right, Chicago that's what it's all about. I just get the goosebumps right now saying it. But, Robin Leonard is probably, more at the top of his game than Crawford is. Does that mean that he could, that we couldn't go out there and win 4 games on the back of Crawford? No, which is what's so fun about hockey. But that's kind of where I'm at with those two things.
Right. Yeah, and kind of brings me to the next point. I feel like anytime you play the Chicago Blackhawks, just because you're going against, Kane, Taves, Keith, Seabrook, we'll just include him even though he's just because he's kind of on the team, and Crawford.
Sure.
When we were growing up, we didn't follow hockey. At least I didn't follow hockey really at all because the Hawks were never in the playoffs. But I always kind of thought of like the Red Wings as that team where it's like, hey, you know what? If you're playing the Red Wings are good. I kind of feel like the Hawks have kind of been, at least for the last decade, I know we're past it now, we're kind of just that team. We're like, hey, if you're going against those 3, they're good. So, there's definitely that part of me that thinks, let's say Kane has like a hat trick tonight, or Kane has 2, Taves has 1, Keith just, lays a couple guys out or whatever, that, let's say they get killed. Definitely, I feel like Robin Leonard could definitely get that in his head that say like, these guys, there's a reason these guys won 3 cups, And maybe that same thing happened with the Oilers when they got killed their first game. Like, wait, these are not our normal 12 seed. I wouldn't want any other 12 seed but the Blackhawks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, regardless of the depth of the roster, you have those guys. Like I said about that bar fight analogy, I mean, it's hard to look past them, right? But I mean, what we saw in the Oilers series, which is really encouraging with that thought, is that Jonathan Toews played a very good power forward position on that game-winning goal in Game 4 to Kubalik. You saw him kind of manhandle somebody up against the boards, kick it right into the slot one time. It felt so much like early 2010s Blackhawks hockey. So, hopefully we can see that again, right? But on the other side of that, you have guys that just turned 19 in January, or guys that are, even Kubalik, he goes out and I think he's like 23 or 24. So, I'm just kind of the armchair guy here, but that's still going to shake your nerves a little bit. But no, I completely agree with you. I think as a betting man, not right now, just moved to this brand new apartment. Funds aren't exactly supple right now, but all the value here is in the Hawks, right? Everybody says Vegas, everybody said Oilers. I mean, until the last radio dial shuts down on 7:20 a.m. up in Chicago, then the Hawks aren't out of it, which is so fun about watching them.
Right. And it's such a nice surprise because not only were we not even sure if hockey was even going to happen, but just being the 12th seed, I'd given up when the regular season was going. I'd totally given up on them making the playoffs.
Yeah.
So just to have that, I'd be a little pissed if I was an Oilers fan, just because hey, they were the 5 seed, just got left out, and then last night in the lottery they got the last pick out of all the non-playoff teams, even though they were a 5 seed. So, but shit like that happens in sports. So,
right. Back to you guys. That was very well said.
So let's also Marc-Andre. I mean, I guess I've always kind of thought, was Marc-Andre Fleury, was he the goalie last year for the Penguins or for the Knights?
Yeah, so he was acquired in the expansion draft. I guess it would make it 2 years ago because they went to the Cup in their first year of existence, which is strange. But actually, the Blues did it in 1967 as well. CJ, I prepared the fuck out of myself for this. I mean, he's a guy who I think was taken first round in 2003 by Pittsburgh. So he's been around the block a few times. But then you have Leonard and kind of this like two-headed monster, right? Leonard being a top tier goalie for sure. Marc-Andre Fleury, kind of the Hawks, probably that core 4 that we're talking about. I mean, Crow, he's not taking any shots at Marc-Andre probably, but they kind of have the book on this guy, right? And that a guy like Toews is going to lead the locker room and kind of steer the younger players in the right direction when you're talking about navigating what you need to do against a certain goalie. As far as goalies that Hawks are going to have the book on, I think these are the best 2 for that. One, because they shot at Robin Leonard every day in practice for a half a season. So I had Chipotle pretty recently. And then also, a guy like Marc-Andre who's been around for, decade and a half plus. So
yeah,
they don't scare me necessarily. Could either of them absolutely take over a game and just punish the Hawks? Hell yeah. Leonard has, I think, 3 starts with Vegas, like before the shutdown happened. He's 3-0, and his goals against average is like 1.87. So I mean, do you stay hot for 4 months and just pick up right where you left off? Obviously not. They just finished up a tough series or round robin with Colorado. But I would say most of my fear probably comes from Leonard because I say that they could have the book on them, the Hawks could, but it could also easily be reversed.
Got it. A little heads up, Marc-Andre Fleury, when Sidney Crosby and the Penguins won their first cup in 2009, he was the goalie for the Penguins, and then he got benched, right? He got benched in Pittsburgh and got drafted by the Knights the first year of the expansion. So just a little heads up. So he's kind of a big name, even though it's weird to see him as a backup.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Matt Murray is the guy that took his job in Pittsburgh. That's good for the folks at home, Jack. I appreciate the behind the music stat.
Right. All right. I got another question for you. All right. So, like I said, I'm sure a lot of people watching this aren't going to know all the players. They'll know Kane. They'll know Toews. They'll probably know Crawford, maybe Keith. We talked about Kirby Dach, so don't include him. But who's a guy that if the Knights have the puck, that we should be a little worried if he's on a breakaway? And who's a guy you could see having a breakout game that, or breakout series that not a lot of people know who they are?
Yeah, are you talking about for the Knights or for the Hawks?
I'm saying for the Knights, who we don't want to see have the puck. For the Hawks, who we think could have a breakout series that not a lot of people are going to know before the series.
Yeah, for sure. So if you're talking Vegas, the worst news that has come out of this last week is that Pacioretty's probably going to play. He's their top point scorer. Last season he's been hurt. Obviously, the timeline not favorable for the Hawks because you have to play him, but that doesn't mean he's going to be 100% full strength. So you don't necessarily want to see the puck in his hands, and you don't want to see him skating well. Obviously, you do. He's a great player. I want nothing but the best health for the best players in the NHL and the worst players in the NHL. I do not discriminate based on skill and health wants. But I will say on the Blackhawks side, to kind of counteract that, you're going to have to see a guy like Adam Boqvist kind of step up, right? He's in the top pairing with Duncan Keith. I think he looked like he deserved that in the Oilers series. But, obviously going up against a guy like Pacioretty, he's a longtime vet and a great goal scorer, great passer. It's going to be really tough. But did I answer the second part of that?
You talk about Pacioretty, the guy in the Knights.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the guy. If you one guy who is a kind of a no name on the Hawks, if you're not a huge Hawks fan, that you think could have a big series.
Yeah, I'd say we kind of need to have a big series. Is probably DeBrincat. I think most people probably know who he is, or Strome. But I mean, DeBrincat's 2 seasons removed from being one of the top goal scorers in the league, and then just this past year, I think he had something like 18 or 19. He took over 200 shots. So, you'd like to see him find the net a little bit more often with how often he's getting pucks on net. But, we need a big series out of him. One thing I will mention, I really don't like 4 things, right? I really hate 4 things. And that's like the St. Louis Blues, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Green Bay Packers, cilantro, and watching Alex Nylander play hockey. I can't do it anymore. I just don't think he looks very good. And that's obviously scary when you're playing against a group of guys who were acquired for a specific reason because they were so consistent and all these contracts weren't structured correctly. And then you kind of have this misfit group of what Stan was able to put together. And we got Nylander for a fucking rotisserie chicken. So I'm not really I'm not sold on him. I'm not out on him, but I really don't like watching him play. So DeBrincat is the guy that needs to have a big series. Nylander is the guy on the Hawks that we don't want to see the puck in his hands because it's scary in a bad way. So Pacioretty, scary on Vegas. Nylander, number 92, very scary on the Blackhawks.
Okay, well, who knows? Maybe he'll surprise you, Cam. Maybe he'll surprise you.
Sure.
All right, so let's see if the Hawks pull out the series. Vegas is the 1 seed. They win this. Who are you most scared of seeing in the next round, or who would you least want to see?
Oh man, I mean, it's kind of, what's so strange about playing the 1 seed is that it would kind of feel downhill from there, right?
Right.
But your division's packed with teams like St. Louis and Colorado, so it's kind of a lose-lose no matter what. But that's kind of what we signed up for as a 12 seed. But I want to make this analogy because I wrote it down beforehand. I'm not leaving this podcast without making this analogy, Jack. But we had the option of playing Vegas or Colorado. Vegas is kind of like eating one long, uncomfortably wide pancake for an entire 60-minute period. So 3 periods, same pancake, very long, just a little bit wider than the girth of your mouth, and you have to eat the pancake the entire time, right? Whereas Colorado would have been you're kind of getting peppered with different sized pancakes. So a silver dollar, and then a regular side pancake, and then a pepperoni pizza sized pancake, but you didn't know it was going to happen. Whereas Vegas is kind of nice because once you get used to the girth and the frequency of the pancake, then you're all right, maybe we can handle this. And then perhaps you can kind of dominate the pancake. I don't know if that resonates with you at all.
Okay, I'm gonna try and say this in my own word. So the derecho yesterday? Is that what it was called? The storm?
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm thinking the derecho comes in really fast. Is that kind of like the Colorado Avalanche?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then maybe it slows down and then picks back up again.
Okay. All right. But then maybe now I could be way off on this metaphor. But okay, so then we're saying the Vegas Knights are kind of like if it just rained, if a rain cloud came above us and just stayed.
Yeah. Consistently for an hour.
Okay. I think I got it. We'll see.
Cool.
All
No,
right.
that was I appreciate you analogizing. Might not be a word. My analogy.
All right. I got one more thing for you. So the Hawks are plus 236 to win the series. You know that obviously means they're the underdog if you don't understand how lines work. Um, so what's your prediction? I think that's great value because we got Kane, Tays, and I'm used to like, hey, if we have them, it's probably a 75% chance we win the series, which obviously isn't true anymore. But what's your take? Is that good value, or what's your prediction? How do you think that series is going to finish?
Obviously, underdogs always have an argument for value, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like we said, and you just hit on it. How could you not? How could you bet against these guys, especially being somebody from Chicago? Yeah. If you ever went to a parade and kind of experienced the electricity of the whole city coming together after something like that, it was a long time before when the Hawks won in 2010, but between their previously most recent cup. I think it was like 61. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously big drought, right? I'm not going to compare, 5 years without a cup. That would be very spoiled Chicago fan of me to, 50 years without a cup. But, it's been a while, right? Just for the entire Chicago landscape when it comes to feeling good, even though the Cubs won in 2016. But when you have a winning standard, it would be really nice to see the Hawks be good again. And if you believe in any sort of manifesting thought, throw some fucking money on the Blackhawks. Go out and
Mm-hmm.
then whatever value you're going to get from, well, I don't know what you said. I think plus 230.
Plus 236 for the series.
Plus 236 for the series. What have you got to lose? You're going to order fucking Grubhub or something? No, just throw the 20 on the Hawks. See a good little turnaround with your money, perhaps, and then you're going to be more invested in the series as it goes along. I think the only thing that makes sense is to take the Hawks here. If you're from Chicago, I'm not going to. Sure, you might be, more. Maybe I'm proud, right? Maybe I'm too
Mm-hmm.
proud, but I do think it's a good bet with good value, especially for us young underpaid professionals who might be looking for someplace to put their money, or you could bet on Vegas and just fucking sit in your own farts all night. But I would take the Hawks here, Jack.
Cool. Yep. I like that. All right. Well, this has been fun, Cam. We'll see. Let's go Hawks, and let's hope tonight goes well. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, man, anytime. Can't wait to come back for the next series.
Cool. Talk to you later.
Bye.